Many times we hear this image of being lifted up, we usually go towards a more celebratory mood. Someone is being hoisted on shoulders because they've gotten this great athletic victory. Or I've seen sometimes in wedding receptions, the bride and the groom are hoisted up on chairs and danced around the room, hopefully before too many people have gotten the wedding wine. But this whole sense of triumph and joy as someone is lifted up, that's not at all the image or the emotions that we're experiencing in both of these readings when we hear about being lifted up. Moses lifts the serpent on the staff as a sign to the people that they recognize the consequences of their sin. And God, by his intervention, has turned the consequence of their sin into their salvation. But they look upon it and they recognize what their sinfulness has wrought, which is death. But by God's intervention, that very same thing can become now their salvation. Jesus speaks about being lifted up, when you lift up the Son of Man. And he's not talking about being hoisted up in triumph. He's talking about being lifted up on the cross. And in John's account, he says this 3 times. In chapter 3 with Nicodemus, in this situation here, chapter 8, which is just after the woman who was caught in adultery. And he says it again in chapter 12, which we just heard on Sunday past. And he talks about it in anticipation of what he is going to accomplish through him being lifted up on the cross. And every time that we celebrate the Eucharist, we are being lifted up through the cross of Jesus to the Father. We are also putting our lives here to be lifted up. Just last night, I was at the San Fernando Regional Center, and we heard Dr. Glenn Komatsu talk about the physician-assisted bill, a suicide bill that's going through the California legislature at this point. And through these debates, many people are being lifted up as examples about why this should be done. And of course, our thoughts go to Brittany Maynard, the young woman who took her life after being diagnosed with a very severe form of brain cancer. And this is why this should be done. But when we look at it through the eyes of faith, we see Jesus offering himself willingly as a sacrifice, ready to be lifted up, that we could look upon him, see the consequences of our sinfulness, and through the intervention of God, recognize it also as now the instrument of life. And that by joining our fate with Jesus, which means through our baptism, that our destiny is now bound in his eternal destiny. We realize that the only way to fully share in that is to not try to wrest control of our life when things happen, but instead allow ourselves to be lifted up on the cross. We know the measure of discipleship, don't we? All who wish to come and follow me, take up your cross and come. There's no way around it. As Monsignor James Aloysius O'Callahan would say, can't go around it, can't go under it, can't go over it, you just got to go through. And he would say it just like that. It's the truth. And in these days, people will need to see us embracing that with a spirit of hope and a sense of joy, and Easter joy. That we can be lifted up, even on something so horrific, and show people that by God's intervention, it now becomes the path to life. So many people are looking for some new path to life. And that's what we're called to present to them. But we also must allow ourselves to be lifted up.